Trump's accounts made more than 60 stock trades a day. Over a period of just 84 days, investment accounts connected to Donald Trump reported 3,642 transactions. That works out to more than 60 trades for every day the stock market was open. The accounts bought and sold securities connected to Nvidia, AMD, Dell, Palantir, Oracle, Boeing, and hundreds of other companies. But what stands out is not just the number of trades. Most of those companies operated in industries directly affected by government contracts, tariffs, trade restrictions, and decisions made by the Trump administration itself. And to make the situation even more concerning, some of those purchases occurred shortly before extraordinary movements in the companies, stock prices, or major government announcements. When Donald Trump returned to the White House, his net worth was estimated at approximately $2.3 billion. Today, Forbes estimates his fortune at roughly $6.4 billion. That represents an increase of nearly $4.1 billion in less than 2 years. And while not all of that money came from the stock market, most of the increase did not come from his traditional real estate businesses either. In 2025 alone, Trump reported more than $1.4 billion in income connected to his family's cryptocurrency ventures. At the same time, his investment accounts held approximately $700 million in stocks outside Trump media and completed thousands of trades while his own administration was making decisions capable of moving those markets. In fact, from the time he took office through July 2nd, Trump's estimated portfolio outperformed the S&P 500 by almost 14 percentage points. And to add even more fuel to the controversy, Trump media recently began developing a way to monetize the market-moving influence of the president's social media posts. According to Reuters, the company that owns Truth Social considered charging Wall Street firms, banks, and investment funds as much as $100,000 per month to receive Trump's posts faster than the general public. The new service, called Truth API, would provide nearly real-time access to posts from Trump and 10 other influential accounts on the platform, delivering them faster than conventional push notifications. But let's return to the stock purchases. Some of the individual trades reported in Trump's name produced extraordinary returns, and the timing of several of them was difficult to ignore. Dell rose approximately 142% after a major purchase connected to Trump's accounts. AMD gained roughly 136%. Texas Instruments climbed more than 70%. And this is where the story becomes even more unusual. We are not talking about 10 trades. We are not even talking about 100. Between January 6th and March 30th, 2026, Trump's accounts reported 3,642 financial transactions. 2,346 were purchases. 1,296 were sales. That is unusual, to say the least. And according to Forbes, it certainly deserves attention.
Before we continue, please subscribe to my channel if you have not already. My name is Keiko, and this is my new channel about finance and the stock market. Now, let's continue.
For example, on February 10th, 2026, Donald Trump's investment accounts purchased between $1 million and $5 million in Dell shares. Over the following months, Dell's stock price rose approximately 142%. And similar situations appeared again and again. On May 8th, during an event at the White House, Trump publicly praised Michael and Susan Dell and told Americans, "So go out and buy a Dell computer. They're great." Dell shares closed that day approximately 11.5% higher. Now imagine for a moment that something like this involved almost any other public official. First, an investment account held in that official's name purchases millions of dollars in a company. Then the value of that investment skyrockets. And later, using one of the most powerful platforms in the world, whether that is X, Truth Social, or the presidency itself, the same official publicly promotes the company's product. And similar situations have appeared repeatedly over the past year. A company's stock rises dramatically around government news or policy announcements, while those same developments may also financially benefit the president as an individual. None of these examples by itself proves that Trump personally directed a trade or knew in advance what was going to happen. It does not by itself make him guilty of a crime either. That needs to be made clear. But what stands out is the pattern: presidential power and personal financial interests repeatedly appearing in the same place. Altogether, the disclosed transactions involved 1,026 different companies and investment funds, with an estimated total trading value of close to $800 million.
Trump's federal disclosure form shows that the president invested in Dell Technologies several times in recent months, including in February, when he bought between $1 and $5 million in its stock. Then, just this week, the Pentagon awarded the tech giant a more than $9 billion contract.
These figures came from a 113-page financial disclosure signed by Trump and submitted to the United States Office of Government Ethics. The activity was so intense that on March 23 alone, the accounts reported 283 purchases and 17 sales in a single trading session. During March, the accounts completed 1,565 purchases, nearly 4 times the number reported in either January or February. In technology companies alone, the accounts disclosed at least $43 million in purchases and $24 million in sales. That concentration matters because the Trump administration was actively making decisions involving semiconductor exports, trade restrictions against China, federal artificial intelligence contracts, data centers, military spending, and technology regulation. As a result, many of the portfolio's strongest performing investments were concentrated in sectors where Trump's own administration had enormous power and influence. Consider Nvidia. Approximately 1 week after Trump's accounts purchased between $500,000 and $1 million in securities connected to Nvidia, the administration formally relaxed restrictions affecting the sale of advanced artificial intelligence chips to China. The January 6 purchase was only the first of 15 Nvidia-related transactions over those 3 months, 9 purchases and 6 sales. Nvidia was already one of the most important companies in the market, and investors had been closely watching the possibility of changes to export policy. Then there is Palantir, which has become one of the most controversial examples. During March, Trump's accounts purchased hundreds of thousands of dollars in securities connected to the company. Palantir is not simply another private sector technology company. A significant portion of its revenue depends on contracts with military, intelligence, immigration, and national security agencies. Then, on April 7th, Trump published a message on Truth Social praising Palantir's military capabilities. He even included the company's stock ticker. That meant the president held a financial interest connected to a government contractor, and then used his personal platform to direct enormous public attention toward that same publicly traded company. Under this arrangement, Trump could potentially benefit financially from attention that he himself had the power to generate. An analysis by Unusual Whales estimated that, excluding Trump's enormous position in Trump media, his stock portfolio gained approximately 37.3% from his inauguration through July 2nd. During that same period, the S&P 500 rose approximately 23.5%. According to that estimate, Trump's portfolio outperformed the broader market by almost 14 percentage points. Of course, not every purchase was successful. Fidelity National Information Services fell approximately 37% after a purchase worth somewhere between $1 million and $5 million. But losing trades do not resolve the conflict of interest question. In a portfolio containing more than 1,000 companies, it is completely normal to have both winners and losers. The more important question is whether companies directly affected by administration decisions, government contracts, or presidential statements produced unusually strong returns after Trump's accounts purchased them. The official explanation is that Trump did not control the trades. The Trump Organization says independent financial institutions managed fully discretionary accounts using automated models, direct indexing, and tax management strategies. According to the organization, neither Trump, his family, nor the company selected, approved, or received advance knowledge of the individual transactions. And that explanation is possible. But by itself, it still appears incomplete, especially considering the enormous volume of trading. Direct indexing can legitimately generate hundreds or even thousands of transactions. Instead of simply buying an S&P 500 fund, an investment manager can individually purchase many of the stocks contained within the index. The manager may then sell selected losing positions to generate tax deductions and replace them with similar assets. But there is another fundamental detail. Trump's arrangement is not a federally certified blind trust. Trump personally signed the disclosure identifying the transactions and the companies involved. He may not have known about every purchase at the exact moment it occurred. But after receiving the reports, he could know which companies were held inside his personal portfolio, while continuing to make government decisions capable of affecting their value. And here is perhaps the most surprising part. The main federal criminal conflict of interest law, Section 208 of Title 18, generally prohibits executive branch employees from participating in official matters that directly affect their personal investments. But the Office of Government Ethics has historically maintained that the president and vice president are not subject to those provisions in the same way as other government officials. So the arrangement may be legal and still be deeply problematic. What has no clearly comparable modern precedent is a sitting president reporting thousands of purchases and sales involving Nvidia, AMD, Dell, Palantir, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Eli Lilly, and hundreds of other companies, while his own administration was making commercial, military, healthcare, and regulatory decisions capable of directly changing the value of those investments. There is currently no conclusive public evidence proving that Donald Trump personally ordered the purchases or provided confidential government information to his financial managers. But there is also not enough transparency to conclude that everything was normal, simply because Trump's own organization says it was. Here is what we do know. The president's accounts completed thousands of transactions. They moved hundreds of millions of dollars. According to outside estimates, they significantly outperformed the broader market. Some disclosed purchases occurred shortly before government decisions capable of benefiting the companies or industries involved. And Trump's accounts held financial interests connected to companies that he later publicly praised or promoted. All of this occurred while the American public had no independent way to examine the separation between presidential power and personal financial profit. The scandal is not simply that Trump's accounts completed 3,642 transactions in 84 days. The scandal is that the system allows a president to maintain financial interests in companies whose value he can move through a government contract, a regulation, a tariff, or a single sentence. The broader concern is not that we can prove a specific company was rewarded or punished because of its political position. The concern is that, without transparent safeguards, government decisions can create the appearance that certain companies are being favored while others are being placed at a disadvantage. And the public has no independent way to determine whether the president's personal financial interest played any role. This issue could go far beyond the returns of a few individual stocks. What do you think? Does this seem as serious to you as it does to me? Or is this simply something that happens during every presidential administration? Let me know in the comments.